Cool. Hi guys, we're going to be going through like a code walkthrough of Catbook React. And Catbook is a kind of more complex app than Snake, and some of you aren't building games, so you might be wondering, how should I maybe structure my website? And we're going to show you how to do that. So go here, pull the code, npm install, make sure you run Webpack at least once.
What? It's the second to last day. I'm just eating Chinese food. I'm sorry, guys. Like, did you make the shortcut? No. We promise we love you guys. We're just. It's been a long week.
It's /water.
It's /water.
That's not.
No, it's not /water.
Wait, what? Is it dash? It's slash. It's just slash Catbook React.
Oh.
Yeah. Why is it Catbook one?
I screwed up. There you go. This is the right one. Catbook React.
Yay! Thank you. Thank you.
This is so good.
Yeah, did you guys find this? Okay. That's reassuring. Okay. So, leave that up for you guys. So if you remember when we built Catbook, we had like two large folders. We had public, which had a lot of our front end code in it. We mainly worked in these JavaScript files, did some CSS with the profile and the feed page, and we had a lot of back end code. We had models, if you remember that, routes, views, and then all of this junk. Great, but in Catbook React, if you guys open up that folder, you're going to see it looks a little different. And before we go into that folder, it's going to be kind of large and scary, so I want to go through and walk through the hierarchy first. So at the top of any tree is app, and you can see that here.
Yeah, I have a question. Why do we bother distinguishing between locals 5000, where we do dev, and locals 3000, which is prod? So why do we dev on 5000 and why do we prod on 3000?
Well, when you deploy, you'll be doing, like, the stuff you deploy will be on 3000. But when we do dev, on 5000, we have something running called, like, the React hot loader, if you remember. And we want to do development on that because it's just more efficient.
Yeah, basically the hot loader on 5000 makes your life so much easier because you don't need to run npx webpack every time. That's literally the only reason. You could dev on 3000, just be prepared to be like 50% slower than your peers.
Yep.
Isn't that? Like, it's chill.
Yep. Cool. So if you remember, these are the components we have in React. And this is kind of similar to what you'll see in non-React version. You have feed. Remember we had like an index.html file? So that's like these are like one of the pages we have in Catbook. You have profile, it's like similar to profile.html. We have a nav bar that's always shown, and that's why it's here. And in feed, we have a bunch of cards. We have a new post component that shows up when we are logged in, so we're allowed to post. We have a card component, and inside that card we have a story. And comments block in there, we split it up for you, like single comment, like no one's already there, and if you're logged in, a new comment. So don't worry if this was a lot. We're going to be walking through all the coding. So, why? Okay. So, the Catbook React version, you'll notice you have a client and a server folder. And first thing we're going to go, like, you notice the server folder, it looks really identical to the non-React version you guys have. This just has all your backend code. Except you notice that you don't have this views folder anymore. And that's because we do our front-end routing, and like React allows us to do front-end routing. So we don't really need this junk. All right. Cool. So we have client, and in this client we have like all these folders, right? And this is where all our front-end code lives. It's where all our React code lives. And we notice this, there's like that one HTML file that comes there, and bundle.js, that's there, and source. So let's look into source. We have two folders. We have public and we have components. And in components, that's where all the React components are. So if you remember that tree, that's where everything is. That's and the app is the highest level. And let's look into components a little more. So pages. We have different pages on your website. And we just split it up into this folder called pages, named it feed.js and profile.js. And we put something, the smaller components in some folder called modules that maybe we're going to reuse a lot on our website. And this just makes it easier. It just helps us organize things a lot better. And if you look inside modules, you'll have card, comment, navbar, and all these things. And these are just the smaller ones that they're really reusable. While these pages here, they're big pages. Yeah. All right. So, what's similar? In Catbook React, we have the front end is client, and the non-React version folder is public. For the back end, we have server, and the non-React version is something called source. So these backends are very similar. Front end, obviously one's in React and one's not. So let's continue. All right. So I want you guys to open up this app.js file just to look at. We're just gonna walk through it together. And you guys can do that now. So I'll just go through a quick rundown of what app. Can you guys see this better? We're good? A little? Okay. Okay. Cool. Alright. So this is app. If you remember, this is the highest point in our tree. And I'll just get quick rundown. On component dig mount, as soon as your app shows up on your screen, we're going to call the function that we wrote called getUser. And this getUser, if you remember, we have the endpoints that we defined. If you remember last week, we have something called API who am I, and they'll just get your user information, tells you if you're logged in or not, and that helps us decide what things we should render. And let's look at the return statement, right? So the navbar is always shown on every single page, and that's why it's not really, it has nothing to do with this switch statement. We're just always going to show it, and that's how we designed it. And if you remember this switch guide from Alex's lecture, yeah?
And can you turn the theme so it's more visible?
How do I do that?
I don't know. I didn't do that.
I didn't do that.
You're the VS Code guy, man.
Oh. Okay.
Well, you could just zoom in.
Oh.
Hey.
What do you want?
Light.
Oh! Fine, we'll go. Alright, yay, we can read it now. Cool. So, navbar. Navbar is a component we have in modules, if you remember. And user info, if you remember, so in getUser, first thing we do is we fetch from our endpoint to see who am I logged in or not. And we set the state to hold their user info. And if you're not logged in, you set that to nil. And you're going to tell your navbar, hey, and just send your navbar information. If you remember, when we were writing navbar.js, we depending on if we're logged in or not, we would show the logout button, and if we weren't logged in, we would just show the login button and the profile button.
So I think this state is actually really important for a lot of you guys using React. So whether your user is logged in or not, you should hold this state somewhere very high up, right? So that your entire app knows whether to render things differently based on whether the user's logged in, right? Based on whether they are logged in, you definitely should show them.
Cool. So let's move on. So I went through that. So let's see. So another route we have is profile, and these are one of our two pages that we have. We either have feed and profile, if you remember, in our pages component. And this syntax is a little funny, you guys. If you can see where my cursor is, I have something /profile/:user, and this is maybe new to you guys, but it's just telling you that this is a parameter we can pass into that route. So anything that matches the first /profile/ then the stuff after that is a parameter. So I'll show you an example of that. So if my unique user ID when I logged in, if it's 1234, if I go to this web page, localhost 5000 /profile/1234, it will return that profile. And I'll show you another example. So we're going to look into profile now. Let's open that up. Okay. Oh God, this looks so bad. Okay. So now that we know how we can show a profile, basically, let's look into profile. And that :user thing, this is how we access the parameter. It's this.props.match.params.user, and this .user is because we had :user, and that's why we can call it directly .user, and you'll know what to grab from that route. And match.params is just a React thing. This is just how you grab variables from your route. And we're just going to give it your document title, profile page, and if you look at this HTML code, it's going to look exactly the same, or if not, really similar to what we have in profile.html. And maybe the only things that are different is the way you put in, we have a latest post component now. So if you'll show this latest post component and you pass down your name and the latest post, which is all data. And don't worry if this is a lot to handle right now. This is a really complex app. I'm just going to try to explain things, Jess. Maybe you can get comfortable and play around with it on your own. So, and if you notice down here, we have get profile. This makes a backend request for a route, and it gets us this user data that will populate our React component with. So if you see here, we set the state. We have the name of the user, and we have last post, and then we have their ID. I don't know what it's there. But basically, oh, there we go. We will put that in here, and that's how that's connected. So, okay. Let's see. Okay. And that's how we get our profile data. So let's look at feed again. Feed is where we'd be doing a lot of our backend requests that we've done it. This might not be the best way to set up your app, but we'll just take a look at it. Feed is a large file. There we go. No, give me a second. Okay.
Remember when we did the Facebook comment stuff?
Mm-hmm.
The first day we did React? So this is a very similar model to that, right?
Yeah. So just disclaimer, this is probably not the best way you do your backend request, but because we didn't, the backend is kind of old and not set up the right way, this is how we're going to do it. It's
Don't blame them.
No, it's fine. This is we all take responsibility for this. Okay, so we have something like get stories, and then this fetches from our backend, if you remember, 8 stories, and then this is probably not going to make a lot of sense to you guys right now, but that's okay, because Okay, because, and then we have something called get comments. This will, we pass in the story ID and it'll fetch like the array of comments here. And this is, add stories what makes a post request to our backend. If you can see, this is like how you make a, if you remember fetch, we learned fetch on Monday, and it tells you to post, and the content is where you're posting it. Then we also have something similar to add comment, which is like the exact, very similar to add story, but the only difference is we have a parent now because we need to know which story to add on. So, feed has a bunch of components, so let's look inside card. No. Okay, so if you remember, feed is made up of this many components, and in the code you could see that we have new posts, and then we have card. And card is like how we displayed our data, and to give you guys a better idea of what it looks like. Oh, hi.
How are you supposed to grab information from the backend if you don't recommend doing it the way we did in feed.js in like the normal Catbook? What's the right way?
The right way?
Yeah, in modern Catbook. Like if we were gonna make it like up to date and like 2019.
Okay, so in feed, you see that we have like separate functions for like grabbing stories and comments. You ideally want to have one request to the backend that grabs your stories and comments all at once. So in your backend code, all right. So in your backend code in API.js and routes, you would define like an endpoint that grabs everything at once instead of just like stories and then comment. So if you grab this all at once, obviously you see it's more efficient. You don't have to make this many requests. Like for your comments, you have to make a request for every comment, and you grab it all the data at once, and you just pass it down. And your feed, which is like one of the higher components in your tree, will manage all of that data.
Yeah, so Shannon's basically right. So what you want to do is you want to grab all the data in one go, right? So make a fetch for /stories, and stories contains all of your stories, all of your comments, right? And every time you make an update, you would send that by a socket, right? You send the update by a socket, and socket emits to everybody else, right? So then you just get updates by a socket and just make one big fetch for all the data at the beginning. So that's like the right way to do it, instead of having all these small fetches of like one story, one comment, because then you need to fetch like every single one, and it's really annoying. So just keep that in mind.
So this is feed. It's a lot. It's a lot. So don't worry if you guys don't understand everything fully. Like this stuff is something we just did like half an hour ago to make it work. So.
Oh. Oh, no, not you.
Okay, so let's go and inspect our smaller React components. So let's go into modules, and I'll show you guys what a card looks like. So we have a large card here, and we have a story component. In this case, rock climbing may have been a mistake. Yeah, this was because I went rock climbing last night.
Yeah, so we're going to
But it's fine, because it works. So we have something called comments block. And you can see here, in box in blue, you'll have, each of these are a single comment component, and you'll have a new comment component. So like, truly, as I type this at 3 a.m., that is a single comment. I think something broke. That's also a single comment. So let's take a look at it. So we'll look at card right now. You can open that up, that's in your modules file. And you'll see here, we have a story, and we have a comments block. And yes, so let's look inside story, just to get familiar with that. If you can see in story, we have like link, right? And this is a link to your profile, and if you remember the path, we pass in that :user thing. This is where we pass in that parameter here. It's the data of the creator ID. And remember, like these class names and these guys, this is just Bootstrap stuff, so it's the same. You can use Bootstrap with React. And your key tag is a props of data or content. We passed in this information from the top. So that's story. And explain what the link is. And there's a link to a link documentation if you guys want to learn more about that. And let's take a quick look at navbar. And this is navbar is where we need to know if we should render like login or profile and logout. So if we take a look here, notice that, remember how I said the difference between link and A tags? This is where it comes into play. Link is like, we're not really leaving the page, but for our auth stuff, where we're doing login and logout, we recommend you guys to use A tags instead, because that will actually allow you to redirect you off the page into some other link. In this case, off Google, which is like not on our page. And React.fragment, this is just some, so when you're returning something in one of these ternaries, you have to return it like one div. And there's a thing, if you return a div, this will stack on each other. And I just use React.fragment to make it horizontal. Yeah, cool. Okay, so that's the link versus A tags. And as you can see, if you have questions about using Bootstrap in React, all you have to do, well, what we did in Catbook is in index.html, we put like the Bootstrap CDNs in there. But after you do that, or install Bootstrap however you like, you can put in the class names in your React anywhere, and it'll give you those files there. So, recap. This is the Catbook React hierarchy. Your app is on the very top. Feed, profile. We have all these in modules, and navbar is already shown. And yeah, that's it.